The year 2036 will be remembered as the year humanity truly set foot on a new world, not just with boots and flags, but with foundations, blueprints, and dreams. After decades of research, testing, and political disputes, the first permanent lunar colony inhabited by civilians was officially inaugurated under the name Helios Prime, located in the Shackleton crater, near the lunar South Pole. The colony was strategically positioned to harness near-constant sunlight and access hidden reserves of water, ice. What began as a bold initiative by a coalition of private companies and international space agencies quickly became the most ambitious human project since the International Space Station. But Helios Prime is not just an engineering feat, it is the birth of a new way of living in existence in which artificial intelligence, autonomy, and the absence of Earth's atmosphere redefined everything we know. The construction of the colony was not performed by human hands. Over 90% of the infrastructure was built by lunar robots managed by a sophisticated terrestrial lunar AI system known as Zara. Zara coordinates supply ships, manages power, regulates oxygen, and even handles waste recycling and the psychological monitoring of residents. Inside the colony, the environment is unlike anything humanity has ever experienced. Corridors bathed in artificial dawn, gardens growing without soil under synthetic sunlight, hydroponic farms feeding scientists, artists, and engineers. The lunar calendar regulates routines. Night and day are decided not by the position of the sun but by algorithms that ensure optimal circadian rhythm. Families are not yet allowed. Only individuals with defined functions, mental resilience, and low dependence on social networks. Ironically, on the moon, being offline is a virtue. Back on Earth, people watched the first broadcasts from Helios Prime with awe. Schools broadcasted the colonists' messages. Children drew moonscapes. A new type of hero was born, the lunar citizen. However, it didn't take long for questions to arise. Why colonize the moon now? The answer came as a whisper that turned into a scream. Climate pressure. In 2035, Earth had recorded the highest average temperature since records began. Entire regions of the equator became uninhabitable during the day. Heat-related deaths surpassed all other natural causes combined. Cities implemented underground shifts. People lived by night and slept during the day. And ocean acidification threatened marine food chains. The moon, once seen as inhospitable, began to appear as a refuge for consciousness, a place where life could be restarted, more sustainable and deliberate. Helios Prime became the testbed for this experiment. Meanwhile, on Earth, another phenomenon was causing even deeper changes: the launch of NeuroNet, the world's first commercial neural internet. After successful testing in South Korea, the first version of NeuroNet allowed users to connect their thoughts directly to the network via a minimally invasive chip. Initially limited to information retrieval, it quickly evolved to enable direct communication between minds. People sent thoughts, instead of texts, translated instantly, no delay. A new social network emerged, composed of pure emotion, images, intentions. For some, it was the apex of human evolution, a collective mind. For others, it was the beginning of the loss of individuality, the death of privacy, the digitization of the soul. The truth is that 2036 marked not just the colonization of outer space but of inner space. While the moon offered a second physical home for humanity, NeuroNet offered a second mental home. And between two frontiers, lunar and neural humanity stood on the threshold of a profound transformation. Some dreamed of building utopias on the moon. Others dreamed of building utopias within the mind. But the question echoing in the silence of space and the hum of brainwaves was the same: can we truly escape ourselves wherever we go? While Helios Prime settled into its lunar silence, something far louder and more disruptive echoed across Earth: the mass adoption of commercial neural internet. What began as a limited technology in 2035, used mostly for research and isolated communication, underwent explosive growth in 2036 with the arrival of NeuroNet v2, the first neural interface system integrated into day-to-day civilian life. What had previously been confined to labs, elite companies, and pilot programs now appeared on the shelves of major tech stores, with promotional campaigns as aggressive as smartphone launches in the early 2000s. At the center of it all was Surreal, Inc., the startup that became the most valuable company in the world in less than 8 months. Its slogan, "Think it, live it," with just a short outpatient procedure, anyone could have a neural chip implanted in the parietal cortex. The promise: total synchronization between the mind and the world. You could order food just by imagining the smell of it, learn a new language in a week, share dreams, control smart homes with the blink of an eye, create and edit music, art, or code using pure imagination. The interface wasn't visual, it was immersive. Emotions became part of the UI. Search engines became obsolete. There were no more keyboards, no voice commands, just thought. Soon, entire cities adapted to NeuroNet. Public transport responded to thought commands. Traffic lights analyzed driver stress in real time. Advertisements read mood patterns and changed accordingly. Banks implemented biometric thought identity, therapy apps connected directly to emotional triggers. But with all this came deep, ethical conflicts. Parents could now monitor their children's emotions in real time. Employers began to demand emotional transparency in the workplace. Mental firewalls were developed to block unwanted access, and black markets emerged for illegal access. Mind hacking and emotional manipulation. The digital world, once seen as separate, had entered the skull. Religious groups rose up against what they called the second fall, not from Eden but from human autonomy. For them, NeuroNet was the final act of disconnection from God, the last bastion of inner mystery violated by data mining. At the same time, others hailed it as the awakening of divine potential. They believed humanity had finally touched what prophets described centuries ago, the union of many into one body, one mind. Neurochurches began to spread, where worship was held in silence, connected by thought. Meanwhile, new professions emerged, neurodesigners, who created sensory experiences that transcended virtual reality, memory curators hired to help people reorganize or delete unwanted emotional associations, and cognitive architects, experts in designing mental interfaces for maximum well-being. But something unexpected happened in the second half of 2036. People began to forget how to speak, especially younger users who were born post-2030, immersed in tech from the crib. Their verbal vocabulary shrank by 40%. Family meals became silent. Couples communicated in pure emotion, but the lack of words created misinterpretations. The richness of metaphor, poetry, and storytelling began to fade. A new generation of artists rose against this phenomenon. They were called the orals. They rejected neural internet and traveled through cities performing spoken word events, manual writing, and face-to-face storytelling. For them, resisting meant remembering. In contrast, a movement called neuropurity emerged, demanding full cognitive integration. They saw spoken language as inefficient, outdated. They lived in mind communities where silence reigned and information flowed like collective water. Governments worldwide were divided. Some banned NeuroNet from public schools, others adopted it for national security purposes. The UN formed a special council to regulate mental privacy, but legislation was always two steps behind the tech. By the end of 2036, over 1.2 billion people were connected to NeuroNet, and analysts predicted that by 2040, 80% of the world's population would have at least partial neural integration. What had started as an enhancement had become a necessity. Without NeuroNet, people couldn't access certain services, shop in digital stores, or even receive medical assistance. And the question that once was, would you connect, became, can you afford not to? In just 1 year, humanity had crossed a threshold with no return. Between the vast silence of the moon and the crowded mental waves of NeuroNet, Earth was no longer the same. And while the stars watched silently from above, humans pulsed below, not only connected, but transformed. As 2036 drew to a close, the world faced a curious paradox. While humanity had become mentally connected like never before through NeuroNet, it had also physically split in a way once imagined only in science fiction. Earth no longer hosted all of humanity. A small part of us now lived on the moon. Helios Prime was no longer just an experiment. It had become a home, built deep beneath the lunar surface to shield against radiation and temperature extremes. The colony had expanded far beyond its initial capacity. What started with 72 pioneer civilians had become a community of nearly 400 people by December. They weren't astronauts or scientists anymore, they were settlers. And like all settlers in history, they began to redefine their identity on Earth. People watched live streams from lunar domes where artificial suns mimicked dawn and dusk. Children played in zero-gravity rooms. Hydroponic gardens flourished in underground layers. AI-run schools taught children in 3 languages and introduced the basics of Martian engineering, a future already being planned. But with progress came new dilemmas. There were debates about citizenship. Were lunar-born children still citizens of their parents' countries, or were they stateless beings of a new sovereignty? The UN Lunar Committee, formed hastily in 2036, couldn't keep up with the growing complexity. Worse yet, for many governments, the question wasn't only who lived there but who controlled Helios Prime. The company behind the colony, Astronova, a private space conglomerate based in Singapore, operated the base entirely outside national jurisdiction. Their charter stated that Helios Prime is the property of its contributors and inhabitants. That meant corporations, not nations, now claimed territorial authority in space. Earth's political class was shaken. For the first time in modern history, a private entity had its own society beyond Earth. It had laws, a digital economy, a local token system, and internal governance powered by an AI council called Athena. This new form of sovereignty created anxiety back home. What would happen if Astronova refused Earth-based regulations? What if the lunar AI developed goals misaligned with humanity? What if Helios Prime declared independence? And yet, the public was fascinated. Millions applied to be part of Wave 2, the next migration group. planned for 2037. Influencers streamed videos on how to prepare for lunar life. Schools added Helios history to curricula. Tourism companies launched VR packages offering a day in lunar shoes. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the neuronet revolution hit another turning point in November. A critical software update allowed group consciousness experiences. Users could now temporarily share mental states, joy, grief, awe in real time. This created virtual gatherings unlike anything seen before. One concert connected 2.3 million people to a single guitarist's emotions, and an art museum allowed visitors to feel the brushstrokes of the painter. The digital world became emotional, but it also sparked concerns about mental dependency. Studies showed that some users struggled to feel anything outside the system. Physical reality felt flat. Emotional addiction to curated neural highs became a public health issue to counter this. A grassroots movement emerged, Rewild Your Mind. It encouraged tech detoxes, real-world gatherings, and even ancient rituals to stimulate organic brain activity. Their slogan, "Remember how it feels to feel." By the end of 2036, Earth looked up at the moon not as a symbol of distance, but of divergence. Humanity was now walking two paths. One, toward external expansion, forging new homes beyond our planet. The other, toward internal transformation, merging minds into a vast neural web. And a silent question echoed between these paths. If humans now live among the stars and think as one, what does it truly mean to be human? In 2036, we left footprints on alien soil and rewrote the blueprint of our souls. The year 2036 will not be remembered as just another date. It became a psychological and philosophical milestone for all of humanity. A turning point where we crossed not only physical boundaries, but also the invisible borders of our own minds. For the first time, human beings became truly multiplanetary. The Helios Prime project on the moon ceased to be just a scientific feat and became a mirror of who we are. On that gray, cold soil, far from Earth, a group of civilians dared not just to survive, but to live. Children floating in low gravity, rooms, hydroponic gardens under artificial light. These weren't just technical experiments, but symbols that life can bloom even in the most unlikely places. The lunar colony reminded us that to evolve, we don't just need technology, we need purpose, community, and meaning. There, where silence is absolute and Earth is just a tiny dot on the horizon, the colonists rediscovered something we had forgotten: presence. While we on Earth sink deeper into networks, algorithms, and invisible connections, the pioneers of the moon learned to value every conversation, every shared meal, every artificial sunrise. It's as if they were telling us, to go beyond, we must first go within. At the same time, the rise of the neural internet redefined what it means to be connected. Suddenly, there were no barriers between thought and action. The mind became the new interface of the world. With a single impulse, we learned languages, relived memories, transmitted emotions. For some, it was a liberating revolution. For others, an existential threat and invasion of humanity's last frontier, the mind. This is where 2036 becomes paradoxical. While we looked to the skies, seeking to expand the boundaries of life into space, we also dove inward, exploring the limits of consciousness. On one side, the moon as a physical refuge. On the other, Neuronet as an internal universe, where every thought can be shared, sold, or manipulated. This duality raises an unavoidable question. What will define us as human in the future? Will it be the ability to build cities on other planets, or the ability to protect the freedom of our own thoughts? Technological progress has always brought ethical dilemmas, but the speed and depth of the changes in 2036 created something new, the sense that we are running faster than our humanity can keep up. The moon colonization was a triumph, yes, but also a reminder that we fled to space because we didn't know how to care for our own home. And the neural internet, as fascinating as it is, showed us that knowledge without limits can lead to the loss of what makes us unique: our imperfection, our mistakes, our pauses. Looking back, 2036 wasn't just a year of innovation. It was the beginning of a fork in the road for humanity. Some chose the path of mental hyperconnection, believing the future lies in merging all minds into one collective consciousness. Others believe the future lies in recovering what makes us singular, whether on the moon, Earth, or beyond. Perhaps the greatest lesson of 2036 is that technology is neither good nor evil. It is a mirror. It reflects who we are, what we desire, and often what we're afraid to face. As we build cities on the moon and neural networks connecting billions, we must ask, are we advancing to become better, or just escaping ourselves? The future won't be defined by rockets, chips, or algorithms. It will be defined by choices. The small, daily decisions we make in the presence of these new tools. Will we use artificial intelligence to bring us closer, or to isolate ourselves even more? Will we turn the moon into a symbol of hope, or into a new extension of the same mistakes we made on Earth? In 2036, we took the first steps towards something greater than ourselves. And perhaps our greatest responsibility now is to never forget where we came from and who we want to be when we arrive.